What a difference 24 hours makes. The Twins lost. Sonny Gray is pissed. Let's talk about it. This is Locked On Twins live.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again. Hey, what do you say? Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. My name is Brandon Warren, and I am your host. Our podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, and of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As a reminder, just a quick bit of housekeeping here, but please feel free to be active in the comments, especially on these live shows where we'll take comments and questions as the show rolls along. Also, too, if you have questions you want addressed on the show, feel free to DM me or message me on Twitter at any time at Brandon_Warner at Locked On Twins and Locked On Twins breathless post-game minutes. After just about every game, as quickly as we can, those show up on YouTube under the shorts column. So check that out. Today's show brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, and that's the same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Twins back at it against the Tigers on Friday. It's a 7-10 first pitch. Joe Ryan against a bullpen game for the Tigers. Sounds like it might be started by Tyler Alexander, which, if that's the case, means the Twins would face three lefties out of the chute in this series. Catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast with Corey and Danny with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Twins, and boy, have we got a lot of ground to cover in this one. A lot of people saying hi, good to see you all. Jacob, Ethan, Nicholas, and our friend Mark remembered to hit refresh tonight, so he's not wondering where I am, which is certainly nice. But good to have you all here. Twins 8-4 loss and an ugly one. Now, Twins score 4 runs in the second. You've got a Donovan Solano home run. You got a Willie Castro single that he dumps into right on an 0-2 pitch. Just a lot of good clutch hitting there. And especially the Solani home run, 3-run bomb. Really felt like the Twins were in control there. Matt Boyd came in really struggling of late. And I don't know, it just felt like maybe this was the time the Twins would find a way to keep tacking on. Unfortunately, after the second inning, the Twins go 2 for 22 the rest of the way. That's a sub 100 batting average for all you math majors out there, a .091. 7 strikeouts and just 1 walk. So not only did Matt Boyd settle in, but the Twins had no answer for anyone who pitched after, whether it was Will Vest, Jason Foley, or Alex Lang. So tough night for the Twins offense, but the story was pitching. And we have an entire segment, as you can see on the screen, dedicated to Sonny Gray being angry about coming out of the game after 4 innings. And we'll have a lot of analysis and breakdown of that. But Gray throws 79 pitches and gets the gate. Ball handed over to Jovani Moran, who had been tremendous for quite some time, and he immediately gives up the lead. Twins go down 5-4 and never regain their footing. Offensively, just a real mess. Willie Castro has his revenge game, but an issue there as well. And the Twins just had no answer for, surprisingly enough, Javier Baez, who struggled all season long, had a couple hits, and then Matt Vierling, who was 3 for 3 with a walk, did not record an out all night, and he's had a couple big games here of late. So it's been interesting because the Tigers came in as losers of 10 of their last 11 and come in and make it look like basically an ain't no thing against the Twins in this one. Emilio Pagan goes 2 innings, 3 strikeouts, and again shows that if the chips are down and the team is down, he's your man. But if there's a lead, you absolutely do not want him anywhere near the mound unless it's a 5 or 6 run lead. Also, the downfall of Jorge Lopez continued. We'll talk about that in the third segment, the 7th inning stretch, because that was and continues to be a real head scratcher. Now, there were a couple of turning points that I want to hone in on from this game. And I think the one that's easier to really point to is, and excuse me, the bottom of the 4th. So we've already kind of gotten the vibe from the TV broadcast, not only because Jovani Moran was warming up, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, that Sonny Gray was coming out of the game and was none too happy about it. Now, we didn't have a confirmation of that until Moran came out for the 5th. But Willie Castro pokes a double into center and then foolishly tries to stretch it into a triple, is out by a mile. And there's a lot of layers to why that burns so much, not the least of which is he's the number 9 hitter. And, they always say you don't want to make the first or third out at third. He made the third out at third, so there's that old adage. But again, getting ready to turn the lineup over, and really one of the last, if not the last times to tack on any runs comes right there. And predictably, Castro makes the out, and then the rest of the night, the offense is just, again, silent. Another one, too, was a ground ball to third. I believe this was Torkelson in the 5th, where Royce Lewis overthrows Donovan Solano at first base. Kind of an adventure there. Solano's decent enough at first base, but he hasn't really been a head turner. And Royce is really, I don't know if I want to say he's really struggling, but he's definitely had some issues with his throws to this point. And I mean, that's to be expected. This is a guy learning a fairly new position on the fly. I do believe he played some third in the Arizona Fall League a couple years back. But again, that's not exactly that's not enough time for someone to really get their footing. And, from that point on, that inning went sideways. It goes from a 4-2 lead to a 5-4 deficit. There was another spot, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hone in on it because I tried to find it while I was prepping for the show, but I was a little short on time. But there was a spot where Ryan Jeffers dropped, or there was a third strike that should have been caught by Jeffers, and then the inning was prolonged after it. It might have been Andy Ibanez in the 2nd inning coming around to score. I'd have to look to be sure, but that was another spot where if Jeffers can hang on to that ball, then the inning probably goes a totally different way. So again, some turning points in this one. I think that we can kind of all agree that the Sonny Gray early shower, quick hook is going to be the one that we're going to spend the most time on and look back on and understand that, not only was Sonny ticked off, but a lot of fans on Twitter as well. Let's talk about Birddogs. Take a minute to give them some love. Birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. Get a free Yeti-style tumbler. I have mine right here. And so I left it out in the car the other day. Blistering hot day, and I came back out. Still iced out. Plenty of ice in my drink. So every bit as good as the other tumblers you'll get. But that is not the takeaway here. The takeaway here is these Birddog shorts. If you like Lululemon, these are basically the same kind of thing. Shorts with liners in them. Can wear them anywhere, ball game, golfing, church, barbecue, whatever. You can wear them wherever you want. They also, they really hug your legs and shape nicely, which for a lot of guys maybe isn't a big deal. But if you want them to look nice, I'll tell you from firsthand experience, they really do look nice, and the customer service is top notch. I had 2 pairs come in that I wanted a little different size, and they were immediate in getting back to me. So absolutely great. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb for a free tumbler, a Yeti-style tumbler. Again, as the one I showed you, says Birddogs on the bottom with a nice little logo on the top. And yeah, so that's birddogs.com/lockedonmlb for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off, we promise you. All right, so Sonny Gray gets lifted after 4 innings. Before we get to that, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. If you're an everydayer, check back Friday. We will have a post-game breakdown after Game 2. Hopefully after Joe Ryan pitches the Twins to a victory. So far looking like the Twins are going to lose a game on both the Guardians, who are up on San Diego late, and the White Sox, who are up on the Dodgers late. So things getting a little tighter here in the division, but again, Twins don't have the most difficult schedule. So hopefully they can hold them off. So the Sonny Gray decision is one where people keep looking back and say, 79 pitches thrown. Not a season low. Gray threw 76 on June 9th, which again is last time out, but went 5 innings. But there are some statistical things here. Now, not only did he walk 3 in the 4th inning, third time this year he's walked 3 batters in any inning, but his lowest strike percentage of the season, 57.0. He absolutely came unraveled in the 4th inning, could not throw strikes. And again, the idea that you want him to push through difficulty, I get, and I don't even necessarily reject that idea, but he wasn't pitching well. You cannot dispute and you cannot deny that. So if he goes back out there and gives up runs, again, keeping in mind that this offense has been fairly inept all season long, even in the games that they've won recently, there's no level of confidence in this offense. If Sonny goes back out and gives up runs or gives up base runners that lead to runs, then it's all bleeping Rocco. Everyone in the building could see Sonny Gray didn't have it tonight, except for Rocco. Full, well-rested bullpen. Every reliever after this game has worked exactly once in the last 4 days. So bullpen well-rested. And Moran as a bridge is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. One thing I want to do, I want to take a look at Moran's numbers over his last 16 appearances. He's been absolutely nails. Now, again, that is before tonight. He did have a tough outing. And again, young relievers are going to have tough outings. But in his 16 appearances between the beginning of May and before tonight, he had a 1.76 ERA, a 4.83 OPS against, and 16 strikeouts in 15 and a third innings. So at some point, you're going to have to trust a guy like that to get you through some tight spots, build that bridge to Stewart, Jax, Duran. Hopefully at some point, Lopez again. We'll talk about Lopez a lot here late in the show because he's broken right now. There's no way to candy coat it. But if you go back and look, 3 walks in the inning, again, pitch count mounting in the inning, bullpen well rested. All of those things to me suggest that it wasn't that egregious to take Gray out. Now, Gray was upset. Gray's a competitor, and there's no denying that he wanted the baseball. But again, if you look back on it and things don't go that way and he goes back out and gives up the lead, again, then it's second guess. There were plenty of first guessers, and I get that. But the 4th inning was such a debacle. It was so brutal for Gray that I get it. And again, if you could have more trust in this offense, that really opens up potential for pitchers to be tested a little more. I do want to be fair, though. This isn't the first time Sonny Gray's had a tough fourth inning. On May 6th, so 40 days ago or so, a little over a month ago, this was Sonny Gray's fourth inning in Cleveland. Ahmed Rosario walk, Jose Ramirez singles, Josh Naylor reaches on an infield single, Josh Bell singles, Andres Jimenez lines up to center, Gabriel Arias walks, Mike Zunino strikes out swinging, Miles Straw walks, again that's cardinal sin, number 9 batter walking, especially when they're as bad as Miles Straw. And then Stephen Kwan, grounds out to first. So in that inning, there's 3 walks, there's base runners everywhere, and the bases are stranded, loaded. Gray comes back out for the 5th inning. Ahmed Rosario flies out to center. Jose Ramirez pops out to short. And Josh Naylor grounds out to second. So, again, to be fair, Sonny came out after a tough 4th inning and was good in that 5th inning. So, there is some credence, to the idea that he could have turned it around. I don't want to dispute that. I don't want to deny that. But I also don't want to ignore the fact that people were asking me, look what happened in the 6th inning or the 5th inning. Sorry. And you don't make the decision for the 5th inning after the 5th inning. You make the decision with the data that you have in front of you. So again, I get Sonny Gray wanting to go back out there, but that was such a bad 4th inning. And again, the fact that it worked on May 6th doesn't mean it was going to work this time. You can play with fire as many times as you want until it burns you. And in this instance, they chose to go to a different fire, which also burnt them. I think if you look back on this game and have a total analysis of it, you don't have to compartmentalize. There are guys who did not do their jobs across the board. Sonny Gray did not do his job. Jovani Moran did not do his job. Jorge Lopez did not do his job. The entire offense after the 2nd inning did not do their jobs. Now, if you want to say Rocco Baldelli didn't do his job, I'm not going to argue with you, because a lot of times we get tied up in the idea that what the opposite decision of what didn't work would have worked. And I'm not denying the fact or possibility that Sonny Gray could have worked out of it moving forward. But again, well-rested bullpen, which has been good this month, sub 2.5 ERA, as we noted in the earlier podcast that was recorded on Thursday. Make sure you check that one out. The bullpen had been nails this month, had been very, very good. And so turning it over after a wobbly start, not that egregious. I don't know. Again, to me, I got it in the moment. I didn't love it, but I understood it, and it blew up on him. Our friend Bob says that Sonny Gray will never pitch again for the Twins after this year as long as Baldelli's still the manager. He wasn't going to anyway. I think the writing's on the wall. Sonny Gray is as good as gone. The Twins will QO him, and then they'll go sign someone like Lucas Giolito or Luis Severino because they believe they can fix anybody. For better or worse, Severino's sliders on Baseball Savant are absolutely disgusting, but he throws hard, and when he's right, he's nasty. So exactly what's going to happen. They're going to go sign him to a 1-year deal. They're going to think they can fix him. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. Giolito's having a down year. They're going to go do that. Sonny Gray's as good as gone. They're not going to want to invest in a guy at his age for the kind of contract that he'll command. So enjoy the ride and enjoy the draft pick. Let's transition, though, into our final segment, the 7th inning stretch, and what the hell has happened to Jorge Lopez. Now, what falls flat for me, and I've seen a lot of people do this, is analyze Jorge Lopez as though 2022 to start wasn't some significant turning point for Lopez. I mean, the sheer fact that Lopez switched from starter to reliever immediately should trip a trigger that changes how we analyze that. And he was so good in the first half with the Orioles, like good enough to the point where he made the All-Star game and even had conversations with Byron Buxton about how cool it would be for him to be traded over. Fast forward a couple weeks, and that's exactly what happened. And again, I don't think, I know I'm going to get some grief for this, but the trade wasn't as disastrous as people are relitigating. It wasn't good. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't a good trade. It was a bad trade. But once the dust settles on it, I think we'll look back and be like, it was whatever. And it was a trade in the moment that we would all look back and realize we would have made. Now, if you look back at where the Twins were going into the deadline. Now, if I recall correctly, the Lopez trade was actually the morning of the deadline. The morning of the deadline, the Twins were 53-48. They were a game over the Guardians. They were 2 games up on the White Sox. Their biggest issue at the time was pitching. They addressed it with Tyler Mahle, who, got hurt. He was only decent. The peripherals and getting him out of Great American Ballpark suggested he could be better. And again, the we can fix him brain trust of this team, you can love it, you can hate it, but it's what they do. Thought they could get him out of Cincinnati and turn him around. They were right with Sonny Gray, weren't they? I mean, Sonny Gray's been phenomenal, and he was pretty good in Cincinnati too. There's no denying that. And there were moments where Mahle was good in Cincinnati too. But they thought they could take him to the next level. He did everything you could like for a pitcher who is about to take that next step in terms of when he's right. His velo was good. He had a nasty breaking ball and strikeouts, no walks. He did everything you'd want. We're always looking for the next Garrett Cole type leap or Robbie Ray or Patrick Corbin. Like there was an entire series of years where pitchers took and made those kinds of leaps. So you're always looking for the next one. The Twins aren't unique in that aspect. They're not unique in that regard. Teams are always looking for guys on the upswing rather than paying market value for a guy who only has downside left. And that's primarily why they're not going to re-sign Sonny Gray. Let someone else give him 3 years, $75 million, and get one good year out of it. And maybe it looks like the Jake Arrieta contract after he left the Cubs, or Madison Bumgarner after leaving the Giants. There's plenty of reasons to believe that Sonny Gray won't be as good as he is this year moving forward. I'm not saying he won't be because I think he's a pitcher instead of a thrower. He can work at lower velocities. The front door two-seamer is phenomenal. His curveball is very, very good. And his command tonight, notwithstanding, also very, very good. But let's go back to Lopez for a second. So the Twins are in first place by a game over Cleveland and 2 over Chicago. Pitching has been their weakness. They addressed the weakness. Now, Lopez was the best reliever to switch hands at the deadline last year. Plenty of other guys moved, but in terms of raw skill, you got a guy who throws 97 with a nasty sinker that goes 97. Good secondary stuff, tons of grounders, had kind of figured out some command, some strikeouts. The strikeouts might have been a mirage, though, because here's the deal. 10.7% swinging strike rate last year really doesn't match up with more than a strikeout per 9. So if there was a miss in the whole calculus of it, it was that even in Baltimore, when he was really, really good, his swinging strike rate was only 11.3%. 10% is about average for starters. For relievers, it's probably closer to 12, I would say. So it's not as though he was blowing the barn doors off the place as much as it was. He was just getting outs consistently with tons of grounders and keeping the ball in the ballpark. Now we look back at the trade, and yeah, so Yennier Cano everyone's like, oh, yeah. You'd love to have Cano instead of Lopez. Have Cade Povich back. Here's the deal. Yennier Cano had 1 foot out the door. Would have been DFA'd to make room for whoever. He had a 9.22 ERA with the Twins. We don't have to ignore that. With the Saints, he was good, real good. But again, not good with the Twins. Goes to the Orioles, puts up 9 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings, so an ERA of over 18. And he wasn't good at Norfolk either. 4.32 ERA, too many walks, too many home runs, and he turned a corner. And with that said, he's been very, very, very good this year. But things have started to slip in the sense that he's not striking anybody out over the last month. Over the last 28 days, Cano has allowed an 855 OPS. He has struck out 5.8 batters per 9 and has a whip of 162. Now, this isn't to demean Yennier Cano, but to suggest that it's very hard for him to maintain this level of production for an entire season. Also, he's fortunate to have even lasted the offseason on the chopping block of the Orioles 40-man roster. That's a team that cycles through guys like crazy. Jake Cave was on their 40-man roster for about a half a minute. So again, Cano's strikeouts have evaporated. I want to see what his ERA is at the end of the season because he's 29. He's a rookie. It's a great story. It might even be a Disney movie. But to say you saw this coming is to also say you saw Brock Stewart being one of the Twins' best relievers when he had barely pitched in the last 5 years. Again, it's a thing that happened, but it was definitely not forecastable. And again, we don't know that Cano is going to continue the same way he has. We don't know that Brent Rooker. Again, all I'm saying is it'll sound like I'm caping for the Twins and management and ownership, but it's really more when the decision was made, what did we know? What did we expect? And also, now that the decision has been made and time has passed, what's still possible? What went wrong? What went right? Where are the gray areas? Et cetera, et cetera. There are so many different ways to analyze baseball that if you keep a curious mind, people will accuse you one way or the other of protecting someone or kissing up to someone when, in all honesty, I'm just trying to put facts out there. Let's talk about Cade Povich. Everyone's talking about Povich being another big miss for the Twins. Povich is the number 11 prospect for the Orioles. So, good farm system, great farm system, but 11th. We don't need to talk about him like he's just behind Jackson Holliday and Gunnar Henderson and all these guys. And he's pitching at Bowie, Double-A Bowie, age 23 season, so he's about a year and a half younger than average. 5.55 ERA. 1.53 whip. This is what opposing batters are doing to him. 766 OPS, 262 average, 351 on base, 415 slugging. So perfectly decent slash. But he has gotten annihilated in the last month. 1,033 OPS. In the last month, he has an 8.82 ERA. He's been crushed. In the last 28 days, a 2.08 whip. So again, very real chance that he's a wash. And then we go to the other guy who is a tiny lefty, Juan Rojas, lottery ticket type, who's hurt. He's on the long-term IL in the minors. He's an entirely a lottery ticket. He's like the Churio kid that came over in the Marlins deal with Arise and Lopez. So again, there's a very real possibility that neither team actually wins this trade. It's just that right now it looks bad because Jorge Lopez has forgotten how to pitch. And that sucks. I still believe in the skill set. Maybe he won't strike guys out, but if he can be your number 3, number 4th best reliever, strike out 8 batters per 9 and induce grounders like crazy, that still has value. Just right now, it's not him. So they need to get him back on track like they have Griffin Jax. And they've been trying. He's only pitched 3 times this month. So it's clear they're backing off him while giving him extra time, I'm sure, to throw bullpens, to mess with different things to make his command better, and not only command in and out of the zone, but within the zone, because his stuff moves so much that, natural movement alone should be enough for him. But such is life. Twins lose 8-4. We're here talking about it late on a Thursday night when we should all be sleeping. Thanks for hanging out with me. This has been Locked On Twins, and you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Twins, at Brandon_Warren. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. If you're an everydayer, check back tomorrow. We'll have a recap of Joe Ryan versus Johnny Allstaff. We'll see how the Tigers manage that, because bullpen games are crazy, and they're doing 2 in the same series. And with that said, it's Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you so much, and don't forget to stop by tomorrow. This is Locked On Twins.